Greetings and salutations from the southern tropics of Michigan. I'm Jordan, the IT guy. Let's chat about PowerShell data types. All right. So last week, if you happen to be watching, we talked about the concept of PowerShell variables. We showcased a little way using a commandlet called getVariable, more on commandlets later, on how to get all the variables that currently existed. We also showcased a very quick way of creating a variable and sticking a string in it. In our case, we put the words hello world in it. Now, I might have mentioned something there where I said we put a string in it. And this is where the concept of data types in variables comes into play. Another common thing about PowerShell and the things that we need to talk about when it comes to variables and their type information is again, to reinforce that PowerShell is an object-oriented language. We can take an entire object, a string, for example, is an object, a integer is an object, a XML or a piece of XML is an object, a JSON payload is an object. All of these are object things that we can stick into PowerShell variables. Now, where this becomes interesting and relevant, especially for those of us who might be in our IT career in different locations, maybe you're just kind of catching up on this series and things like that, is that how you interact with those objects and understanding or knowing what that object is ahead of time can be extremely beneficial to us. So let's take a look at how we can deal with that and a couple of little odd things about different PowerShell objects and their types along the way. Today we're going to be working with PowerShell 5.1 and Windows 11 again. All right, let's go ahead and get started. First, I'm going to right click, run as administrator, to have PowerShell go ahead and run for us here. Now, earlier on, I mentioned certain things like, $PS version table is in fact variable. You can go ahead and hit that. We can get its information out about it, right? We also, last week, created a variable called hi, and we stuck into it hello world, and hit enter. And we run hi, it spits out hello world. Now, I mentioned that that is a string. How do we find out that that's a string? Well, there's a couple of different ways, but the way that we're going to talk about here is we're going to be using what's called a method attached to this variable that automatically gets attached by the virtue of the object getting created. That lets us find out what kind of an object this is. So if I just do $hi period get type like this, and then I put parentheses down here. This is to just show that it's a method, okay? And then if I hit enter, we'll see that it spits out its type information, including the fact that it is a type of name string. Now, I don't expect anybody to know what this is or to understand what this is. We'll talk more about this later on and what methods are, how we can find out what methods exist on an object later. Just know that right now, if you want to get into the type of something that an object is, you can run .getType with parentheses, and PowerShell will be more than happy to cough up an explanation of what the object is. Let's look at a few other object types though real quick here, just to understand some of the cool things that we have available to us in PowerShell. So I was to actually do something like our friend PS version table that we've used a few times here. PS version table dot get type, and hit enter, we find out that it's hash table. Now, we'll talk more about hash tables later on. Just for now, know it's another object type inside of it. Another thing that we can do is we can actually type something like number equals 1. Go ahead and hit enter here. And if we do number.getType, notice that it comes out as an int32 as a number. We can also, however, do number equals 1 in quotes. And if we do number.getType and hit enter, notice that it comes out as a string. This is because of these quotes that got used here, whereas there were no quotes that were used here. This is kind of an interesting way of how the PowerShell can lie to you essentially about what it thinks it is. And this is where anybody with a strong programming background is going to understand that there's this concept of typecasting a variable. So you can force a variable to be a specific type of data ahead of time by typecasting it. We'll talk a little bit more about typecasting and why we may or may not want to use it next time. I hope this was useful and informative, and I look forward to talking to you next week. Have a great rest of your day.